We're going back to the first week in April in 1987. Bumbling cops were again disrupting the box office. NBC's Family Hour and America's Favorite Bartender had all eyes on them. And in music, two former frontmen are in the top 15, while the number one song on the charts is one of the worst songs I've ever heard. All this and more coming up on This Week in the 80s, first week of April, 1987. The top 15 movies for the weekend of April 3rd to April 5th is a long list of movies that you've seen. If you're watching this, you've seen these movies, most of them anyway. Now, number 15, Evil Dead Part 2. Maybe horror wasn't for you, but that was still number 15. Number 14, Return to Horror High. Whatever the hell that was. I never went to Horror High to begin with. Number 13, one of my favorites, Raising Arizona. Son, you got a panty on your head. It's one of the best lines in movie history. Number 13, Raising Arizona. Number 12, Crocodile Dundee. Crocodile Dundee in the theaters. Wouldn't that be fun? Number 11 was controversial. It was Angel Heart. I never saw it because at this point in time, I was like 13. But I remember the controversy with Mickey Rourke and the girl from Cosby Show there, Lisa Bonet. And they must have just did some things that were not really appropriate for the big screen, but it was the 80s. Things that are rated R right now are rated like G12 back then, if that existed. Number 10, Outrageous Fortune. Number 9, Mannequin. Talk about a weird-ass movie. Dude falls in love with a mannequin. You know what? It was the 80s. It's fine. Number 8 on the list, Hoosiers. Got to pass twice before you shoot. Gene Hackman was all over the place, and he was awesome in that as well. And number 7, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. How many more Nightmare on Elm Streets do you think they'd make? About 100, and they were all worth seeing. Number 6, Burglar with Bobcat Goldthwait. Number 5, Tin Men, Richard Dreyfuss and Danny DeVito. Number 4 on the list this week, falling from number 2, was Lethal Weapon. Riggs was the man. This is actually on my friends at the Cup to Cup show, the podcast, Cup to Cup podcast. If you haven't spent any time listening to it, you should. This was high on their list for their 80s movie, action movie bracket. That was a lot of fun. Number 3 on the list is Platoon. I'm going to tell you something funny about the movie Platoon. So at this time, we know I was 13 years old. And I remember getting dismissed from school by my grandfather to go see Platoon. Like, that's the type of stuff that we did in the 80s. You know, it wasn't, the parents weren't starting pickets outside other parents' houses for how they were treating their kids. My grandfather, who was in his probably mid-70s at the time, took his 13-year-old grandson to see a gruesome war flick. I'll never forget it. It was awesome. Love you, Poppy. Number 2 on the list, falling from number 1, is Blind Date. And this week's number 1 on the list, guys, I don't know what our obsession was with these movies. Most of them were garbage, but Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol. Like, we talked last week or the week before about Police Academy 5 being at the top of the list. This week, it's there again. It's the debut at number 1. Like, what were we thinking? It starts out with 1,700 movie theaters and had the highest gross for the weekend. Police Academy 4. A long list of great movies, though. I mean, if you're going to sit down and watch 10 awesome 80s movies in a weekend, which is a great idea, there are 10 on this list alone that could seriously cut the mustard to be on your list. So if you haven't seen the ones I've talked about, make sure you do so. Start with Raising Arizona. It's one of the very few Nicolas Cage movies that doesn't suck, and it's absolutely hysterical. Don't miss it. It's Thursday night. It's April 2nd. It's 1987. It's 8 o'clock. What are you watching? You're probably not watching ABC. ABC had on a show called Our World, which is just basically a news show. Like, they just couldn't compete with what else was on, so they said they're just going to mail it in and put on a news show. On CBS, there was a show called The Wizard. And there's a really weird wizard world out there with these people who are just still trying to bring it back, despite the fact that it's been off television for, 30 plus years. But it was a show that ran for 1 year. They got canceled. They moved it. They tried to bring it back. They failed. They had all these writing campaigns. Madness. Didn't work, though. And I had to actually Google all that because I'd never heard of The Wizard. Because at 8 o'clock on Thursday night, on April 2nd, 1987, I guarantee you I was tuned in to NBC for The Cosby Show. The Cosby Show was as fun as it got. Now, keep in mind, this is all before, who Bill Cosby really was came to light. So we're 13 years old. We're loving this stuff. The Cosby Show was amazing. Everybody watched it and everybody quoted it and everyone talked about it the next day. And at 8:30, one of my favorite shows of all time, still on NBC, was Family Ties. It was Alex P. Keaton was the coolest that there was, right? And there was Mallory. Gotta love Mallory. And Brian Bonsall as the kid, and the parents there, Michael Gross, who went on to star in every Tremors that ever existed. They got worse and worse and actually got better because of it. And Meredith Baxter Birney as the mom. Everybody watched Family Ties. The Cosby Show and Family Ties ruled the 8 to 9 o'clock spot. So nobody cared about ABC's Our World or CBS with The Wizard. At 9 o'clock, there was a little more competition. ABC still mailed it in with some show called Jack and Mike that nobody watched and nobody cared about. On CBS, they had Simon and Simon. Let's get some action in there. Let's get some competition for NBC. Simon and Simon was a super fun show. It still stands the test of time. If you can find repeats of Simon and Simon, it's worth watching. It's a great show. Speaking of great shows, NBC, of course, had a show where everybody knows your name, Sam Malone and the good folks down at the Cheers Bar. It's interesting that it's set in Boston, but only John Ratzenberger really had the Boston accent. Everybody else was just kind of Midwestern non-accent having. And as a masshole, if you will, I appreciate the fact that they didn't have a bunch of people pretending that they're from Massachusetts and putting on the worst accents that you've ever heard in your life. But Cheers just slaughtered everybody. Jack and Mike on ABC, what are you doing? Now, NBC had a problem, though. They could never find a good show, or for a long time anyway, to follow up Cheers. This night in particular, they had a show called Nothing in Common. Nothing in Common had a few shows. Nobody watched it. That show was so bad, Cheers couldn't carry it for a half hour. So that didn't last too long, and they were out. But onto the 10 o'clock slot, there was finally some parity, some even competition. ABC's Super News Show 2020, they actually got some ratings. NBC had LA Law, which was the big drama at the time, but other people wanted more of the soap opera side of things. So they're on CBS with Knots Landing, right? But if you're sitting down and you're a kid of the 80s, you're in bed at that time, you're watching The Cosby Show, you're watching Family Ties, you're watching Cheers, and you're probably going to bed. So one of the coolest things about 80s music is that when you look back at the charts for any week, there are 20, 30, sometimes 40 songs that are awesome. That as an 80s fan, and you're an 80s fan because you're watching this show. If you don't love the 80s, what are you doing here? An 80s fan loves the charts every week. So each week I'm putting together a playlist of the top songs of that week. Not like 1 through 20, because sometimes some real crappy stuff sneaks in. But in my opinion, the best songs of that week, and put them in a playlist. So make sure you subscribe so you can turn it on and crank it up. Let's look at the top 100. Let's see the best songs that made it in and have a little bit of a conversation about them. After 18 weeks on the chart, checking in, falling all the way to number 98 was Open Your Heart with Madonna. Now, for us young kids, Madonna at the strip show was pretty good. That was worth watching the video. But that was on there. More importantly, that was the last week that song was on there, so we didn't have to hear it anymore. An awesome song. On 89, a 23rd week on the charts, my buddy Samantha Fox with Touch Me, I Want Your Body. If you're a Samantha Fox fan, then make sure you're subscribing here because I'm going to have Samantha on as a guest, and we're going to talk about some of her awesome exploits as an 80s pop star. So number 89, Samantha Fox, I Want Your Body. Also in the top 100, number 77 was Keep Your Hands to Yourself by the Georgia Satellites. And something to remember when I'm going over these is this is what was on the radio. So you're driving down the street and you've got your hit radio on. At this point in time, I was listening to like 103.3 WHTT or 94.5 WZOU. And this is what was coming on. And we were loving it, man. You're driving on and all of a sudden you hear that Keep Your Hands to Yourself starts, you're cranking it. I mean, that's just some seriously fantastic music. Sometimes you'd also get stymied a bit because they play Always by Atlantic Starr, but you could always just switch over to something else. Or maybe you lucked out because number 69 this week was You Can Call Me Al by Paul Simon. The video was about as fun as the song itself. If you remember the video with Chevy Chase coming in, it's probably the last time Chevy Chase did anything enjoyable. But that was a lot of fun. And the Thompson Twins were on the list. Sammy Hagar, Rat with a song called Dance. Rat had like 2 songs and that was it, but they kept trying. So good job by them. Kenny Loggins, Meet Me Halfway. The Psychedelic Furs, checking into number 60 with Heartbreak Beat. How about this, guys? Number 59, new on the charts, only the 3rd week on the charts. The Beastie Boys with Brass Monkey. I can honestly say I don't remember Brass Monkey being on the radio, literally ever. Maybe they weren't playing it where I lived, but I don't recall that. I did have the record, though, and I had the tape, and I wore the hell out of both of them. Number 58, right above the B-Boys, was It's Tricky by Run DMC. I'd go over a couple of lines of that, but I just don't have the chops for rapping, that's for sure. But Run DMC on the radio, that's pretty cool. Number 47 was the one I do remember being on the radio. Speaking of rap on the radio, after 16 weeks in the chart, they're still hanging on. That's the Beastie Boys with You Gotta Fight for Your Rights. Fight for your right to party. Everybody pretty much, I mean, everyone loves that song, right? Even if you don't love rap, you still love the Beastie Boys' Fight for Your Right to Party. That was the beginning of a long history of my love affair with Beastie Boys music, just nonstop up until like the mid 90s. Then they went straight down. A new entrance to music that I listen to, Poison's Talk Dirty to Me. It was only their 4th week on the charts. They're at number 41 in this week. And that whole album, Look What the Cat Dragged In, that was a fun album. Just such 80s hair rock, hair metal, glam rock, however you want to describe it. It was fun. It was just fun. Number 37 that week, Krista Berg with Lady in Red. I don't know why I know all the words to that song. It's not like I sat around and wrote them down and memorized them. Where was I when I heard that song so often that I remember the words? But Lady in Red, it's on there. The 3rd week on the charts for a song by a band you might remember from the 80s. This little band called U2 with a song called With or Without You. I'll tell you something about that With or Without You song and the album Joshua Tree when it came out. I was a huge U2 fan. I started loving U2 when I was like 10 years old, like 1983, right? So Sunday Bloody Sunday and War and I Will Follow and Glory and Live Under a Blood Red Sky and U2's badass and I love it. And then Pride in the Name of Love comes out and A Sort of Homecoming and Wire and Everything Off the Unforgettable Fire. Awesome. And then they make us wait 3 years and they release With or Without You. And Bono's got his hair all slicked back and Adam Clayton lost like 40 pounds and The Edge just wearing this ridiculous hat. And I looked and I thought, what happened to U2? And of course, With or Without You, the video I'm watching, I'm just like, no, this isn't what I've been waiting all these years for. It's like 1997 when they released the new Star Wars and you left the theater saying, well, I waited for what? I felt the same way with or Without You. And most of the Joshua Tree outside of Bolt the Blue Sky and Streets Have No Name. A lot more on YouTube some other time, but they're at number 35 this week. And obviously now in my older days, it's a great song. The Light of Day from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Remember that from the movie there, The Light of Day? They were at number 33. Now we're starting to get into the big hits that have been around for a while. Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. Come on. Living on a Prayer in a regular rotation on the radio. Like you're not listening to that. Or Big Time by Peter Gabriel. Remember he tried to follow up his Sledgehammer video with another video acclamation and it just didn't cut it? But Big Time's a pretty cool tune. Huey Lewis is in the top 30 at number 28 with Jacob's Ladder. Everybody loves Huey Lewis, right? Like, I can't imagine someone be like, yeah, you know what? I don't really like Huey Lewis. I'd say, well, you know what? I don't really like you. Robert Craig, Madonna's also in the top 25 with La Isla Bonita. Taught a bunch of us Spanish. Come As You Are by Peter Wolf after he left the Jay Giles band. That's at 24. 22, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight, The Cutting Crew. Everybody loves The Cutting Crew. Then we start getting into some of these songs that just show up and you just think, how's that in the top of the list? Dominoes by Robbie Neville. No. Stone Love by Kool and the Gang. What are you kidding me? The Honey Thief by Hipsway. What the hell is that? I got to find out. Walking Down Your Street by the Bangles. They kind of were like a two-hit wonder. Like they didn't really have much else going on. No offense to Susanna Hoffs. If you're watching this, you guys were the greatest band I've ever heard in my life. Please contact me, text me, send smoke signals, whatever you want. Number 15, Somewhere Out There from The American Tale. Remember Fievel, The Little Mouse, Linda Ronstadt, and James Ingram. Yep, know all the words to that too. Can't tell you why. The Finer Things by Steve Winwood, one of those commercial songs. It was always on the radio. Number 12, Sign of the Times, Prince. Number 11, Lou Gramm with Midnight Blue. Lou Gramm has an awesome voice. Like Midnight Blue is a great tune. When he was with Foreigner, he was awesome. Foreigner comes around now, and like you look at the lineup of the band, it's like, man, I want to go see Foreigner. They're playing here tonight. I hope they're going to play all the hits. But then you look at who's playing, and like the only original member is the bassist. It's like you're going to Foreigner karaoke. Like I'm not paying $150 for a decent seat to see the bassist. I don't even know the guy's name. No Lou Gramm, no Foreigner. Bring back Lou Gramm, though. I'll pay a lot of money to hang out at that show. Number 9, Mandolin Rain, Bruce Hornsby in the Range. For a short amount of time, Bruce Hornsby made piano cool to play. Number 8, iconic 80s hair, glam, rock, The Final Countdown by Europe. That song gets stuck in your head. Whew. In fact, it is now. I can't even get it out. Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House. Number 7, Neil Finn. I Knew You Were Waiting For Me, Aretha Franklin and George Michael. Number 6. Number 5, Expose, Come Go With Me. Not really sure on that one. Janet Jackson, Let's Wait a While. Let's not. You're going to get your clothes ripped off in about 15 years by JT. Number 3, Tonight, Genesis. Number 2, Lean on Me by Club Nouveau. Now that is a super cool tune. Like it has just one of those beats where you're just kind of hanging out and you got it on and people are digging it. Club Nouveau, Lean on Me. And the number 1 song for the week ending April 4th in 1987, Starship with Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Somebody kill me. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship. What were we doing? How many people were calling in requesting Starship anything? I mean, Knee Deep in the Hoopla should have been the end of anything they've ever done. We built this city. Talk about garbage. But the rest of the list is pretty good. So I'm going to put this all together, not all of it, because that would take forever. No one wants to listen to a lot of it. But I'm going to put all the cool ones together on a playlist. So make sure you search my channel here on YouTube and find it, because it's a lot of fun to just put it on repeat, put it on random, and listen to some great 80s tunes from the first week in April, 1987. All right, that's going to do it for me here for the first week in April of 1987. Don't forget to find me on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell so when new videos come out, you're the first to know. I'm going to leave you with the line from Lean on Me by Club Nouveau. It's something that's important. Don't forget to reach out to friends and family. If things aren't going well for you, call somebody. If you haven't heard from a friend in a while, call or text them. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we'll know there's always tomorrow. Guys, take care of yourself. I'll see you soon.